This information is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information with regard to the subject matter covered. It is offered with the understanding that the presenters are not engaged in rendering legal, accounting, or other professional services. If legal advice or other expert advice is required, the services of a competent professional should be sought.
All right, so I am recording tonight, just so you are aware. I'll kind of give you some background. I'm James Orr, real estate investor, real estate broker here in town. So we've been doing classes here since 2003, not all at the board. And we've been, for those of you who are trying to get into Wednesday night classes, you notice that they're kind of booked up. And we have our schedule for the year already planned out in advance. So what I decided to do earlier this week, I think Monday or something like that, is I decided we're going to do a separate class each week on Thursday nights for Nomad. And the reason why it's so easy to get in and there's not a lot of people here is that this is all very brand new. So we expect this to kind of fill up, but this is intended to be classes specifically for nomads, and we're going to go over what Nomad is tonight. A little background on that. We kind of coined the term Nomad. We didn't invent the strategy. But we coined the term Nomad here at the Investor Club, and we've been starting to teach classes on what Nomad is and how to do Nomad. And so I've decided to take, actually my wife and I decided to take Nomad nationwide. And so we're going to start having other real estate agents and lenders and other cities actually teach classes. And so the classes on Thursdays, we're going to be given PowerPoint presentations and the handouts, and you will print out the handout ahead of time. Okay, good. So you guys will be able to take notes on that, but we're going to give them handouts and the PowerPoint presentations and all that stuff so that they can actually go and do the classes in Atlanta and Colorado Springs and those other types of places. So we're going to allow them to teach the Nomad concept to other people and help them out. So the classes I'm doing on Thursday nights, I'm recording, and we will make them available to people. You guys can watch them online if you happen to miss class. We're going to make them available to people in other markets. So if it seems like I'm talking very generically about in your market, it may be different. It's because I am. I am actually talking about all markets, not just our local marketplace. And so a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about, I'll use examples from here a lot of times, especially for other classes, not necessarily this one. But we're going to be doing other market type stuff. And so that's kind of what we do here. So normally what we do is we do introductions. We've been to one of the Wednesday classes. So we're going to go around the room, do who you are, and then what your favorite real estate books have been, if you can do that. So again, I'm James Orr, real estate broker. One of my favorite real estate books is Millionaire Real Estate Investor by Gary Keller. We call it the Blue Book. It's a really good book if you haven't read it. It's a lot about buy and hold and fix and flip, but the general idea of being a real estate investor in general. So, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Tara Spino, and I don't know, it's not really a real estate book, but it's, I think you could apply it to any type of business. It's The Miracle Morning.
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally.
It's really good. I haven't implemented it yet, but I plan on doing it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a good book.
Yeah.
Thanks, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Me, I'm Casey. My favorite new real estate book is
That's like a free plug. I appreciate that. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Well, you stole my thunder.
Oh, that was going to be your new favorite book too? Wow. It was an easy crowd.
That just shows how little I read real estate books. I'm Patty Walker, and I have read a ton of them, but I can't say I have a favorite.
Okay.
Because after a while, I was just like,
what's one you read recently that you liked?
I'm on the Soul books now. Sell with Soul, Market with Soul.
Oh, are those any good? Because I had them in my Amazon wish list, but I haven't actually read them yet.
You know, they sing to me,
Okay.
so I think they're good. You would probably hate them.
I would hate them. Why would I
I
hate
don't know,
them?
just the very brief time I've met you, you're not a...
I'm not touchy-feely?
Warm fuzzy.
Really? I don't give off the warm fuzzy feeling? Curtis, do I give off warm fuzzy? All the time. I actually do get off warm fuzzy.
I'm cheesy. I don't know. A lot of, you know, it's a mixed bag. What people are gonna like.
No doubt.
What people are gonna, yeah. But I like it. It
Okay.
sings to how I would like to be able to do business. So.
Okay. Have you gone through any of the ninja training or anything like that?
Well, since I have no idea what you're talking about,
Okay,
it's not.
you would like that. If you're into sort of what you probably refer to as touchy-feely, kind of relationships before transactions and really making friends and things like that, the ninja training taught by the group in town here, Larry Kendall actually teaches ninja. He basically came up with the idea with Jimmy Dunlap. And it's a pretty good model for just relationship-based real estate brokerage stuff. So, yeah, you'd probably like that. And it's pretty reasonable too. You can get some probably stuff online and maybe from the library. Yeah, so thanks,
Okay.
welcome. Curtis.
I'm Curtis. I also haven't gone through a lot of books. The one that sticks out in my mind is, I think it's called Secrets of a Millionaire Real Estate Investor. It talks a lot about asset protection.
Okay, yeah, sure. The Bill Bronchick book on
Yes.
asset protection.
Yes.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, you like that book, huh?
Yeah.
It's a little dense reading.
It is, but
I would read it.
Yeah, it's really deep. It's like a very technical book. It's a really good overview for asset protection if you guys are interested in that. But it's a good book, kind of a good primer for asset protection.
it can give you a lot of ideas and a lot of tools about how you need to structure when you get that far.
Totally. Yeah, that's cool.
Secrets of a Real Estate Investor?
I think it's called Asset Protection Secrets of a Millionaire Real Estate Investor. And it's by Bill Bronchick, William Bronchick, and Bronchick is spelled Bronchi. It's either CK or K. I think it's CK. Yeah, and he ran the Denver Association of Real Estate Investors, the CARI, Colorado Association of Real Estate Investors out of Denver, for many years. I don't think he does it anymore, but he is an attorney in Denver, practices asset protection primarily, I think. And he has a pretty good, it's a primer book. The book's like, I don't know, $15. I think it's out of print actually, but there's some used copies floating around on Amazon. And it basically, my understanding is he has like a $2,000 course on asset protection that he sells. And the book is, and that course is basically 4 binders. The last 3 binders are like the actual forms and a little bit more detail and some audio CDs. And the first binder is the book. So the information that you get inside of the book itself is in the binder. So if that helps you at all. Cool?
I'm not here.
I haven't seen you forever. How come you're not here?
I'm trying to spouse. I haven't read any books. I'm just here for more so far.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. We like seeing you. Thanks for coming. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Daniel. I haven't really read any real estate books except for the Nomad book.
Was the Nomad book any good?
That's pretty good.
Okay. You're an engineer, right?
Yes.
So you liked all the charts and the numbers and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Did that kind of speak to you? You're like, oh man, someone who actually knows the math and can explain it to me. Yeah. Cool. Well, it's good to see you again. You were like here first time last night, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks. Welcome.
So I'm Larissa, I'm Daniel's spouse, and he was like, come on, you gotta come with me. So,
Wow, dragging the spouse
so
along.
I was like, okay, I'll come. I haven't read any real estate books.
Okay.
Since we're so young, we're interested in investing in new properties and stuff like that. We might as well do it while we're young.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
And you guys are like ideal young nomads. I don't know what you do, but if you're an engineer, I mean, that's really what it's modeled after. And between you and me, Royce is kind of like the model that we use for that. So you know Royce, right? Yeah. So he's like the guy that we model him. Oh, he gave you the book? Well, that's kind of cool. I thought Addie somehow like gave you the book. But that's cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for coming, guys.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Valerie, and I can't think of the names really of any real estate books. I did like one of the Gary Keller books. I don't think it was that one.
Was it Holt?
I think it was the first one.
Millionaire Real Estate Agent is what he.
I think.
Are you an agent as well? Okay, yeah. He's got a great book if you're an agent for kind of business models. So that's a good book too.
Yes,
if you haven't read that one.
I think that was the one that I read and liked.
And he is more, I mean, though he talks about relationships and stuff in there, but he is much more speaking to engineers. He's very numbers based. He tells you what your conversion and how many numbers you do and how you plan out. That's a really good book for doing that if you haven't read that as a real estate agent.
But I'm very excited about reading this. Thank you.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure. Yeah. Is there anyone who did not get a Nomad book? Dan, did you not get one? No, I didn't. Why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Dan, I buy and hold, and I think the last real estate book I read was a long time ago. I think it was not even real estate, it was Rich Dad Poor Dad, I think.
Yeah, which one? Was it the Rich Dad Poor Dad book?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's a good book. All right, awesome. Well, I'm going to get started. So here are the upcoming classes. For the recording, because I'm recording this for the national stuff, for those that got here on time, the recording, I'm going to go through what we have coming up. This is not our full schedule for local stuff. We have a whole different series of classes we're doing on Wednesday nights, but these are the Thursday night classes that are coming up. So upcoming classes, next Thursday we're going to have a class on cash. How many people have been to a class where we've gone over the spreadsheet and how to analyze deals? Okay, so if you haven't, there's a spreadsheet on our website, on the ncrank.com website, which is on the meetup site. In the files section, there's a spreadsheet that Brian created on how to analyze deals, and that's primarily what we use to teach. The reason we do that is because you can go download spreadsheets from anywhere, and then you're going to call and you're going to say to me, hey, James, I'm looking to buy a house. Here, analyze my spreadsheet, and then I got to spend 2 hours figuring out that your spreadsheet is wrong or that it doesn't do the calculations correctly, and it just makes me spend a lot more time. So instead of actually having you do all these different spreadsheets from all over the place, we give you a really good one. And we teach from that all the time, and we encourage you to use that one. So you're welcome to go download that. It's on the website. And what we're going to do next week is we're going to go over how to analyze deals specifically from a cash-on-cash perspective. Cash-on-cash, if you don't know already, is basically the return you're getting primarily from cash flow divided by the amount of money that you invested. So if you're getting $200 a month, that's $2,400 a year. And if you're investing $60,000, that's primarily how we calculate cash-on-cash return. And cash-on-cash return, in my personal opinion, is the #1 indicator that we want to use when analyzing properties. Some people believe it's cap rate. I disagree. So I think cash-on-cash is the primary one you want to do. And we're going to talk about it specifically how it applies to Nomad because it does change a little bit when you only put 5% down. Okay? So we're going to cover that on May 19th. I'll be putting up the information for the classes on these website addresses, so you're welcome to go visit those anytime after. If you download the digital handout version, you can click on those links, and they should take you right to the webpage. If they don't, let me know. And then next week after that, we're going to go over the buying process overview. We taught this class earlier in the year. How many people came to that class where we went over the buying process from the very beginning to the very end? This is why we're doing Thursday classes, because basically we went over this in like January or something, but we're going to go over it again for nomads and go over kind of the general buying process overview. So if you've never bought a house before, we're going to cover that in detail, and specifically for nomads. Legacy Nomad overview. How many people know what Legacy Nomad is? Nice, I get to tell you what Legacy Nomad is. So Legacy Nomad is based off of me. The Legacy Nomad is somebody who has assets. They have kids that are probably 20 to 26, 28, maybe 30, where they want to get money out of their own estate and they want to start thinking about leaving a legacy for their kids and their family. And one of the ways to do that is you tell your kids when they get out of college, you guys are going to go buy a house. I am going to gift you your down payment. I'm going to gift you 5% down. You're going to move into the property. You're going to live there for a year. You're going to come to all the Nomad classes and learn how to manage rental properties and learn why the Nomad model is so good. At the end of the year, I'm going to gift you another down payment, 5% down. You're going to move out of the last house. We're going to actually occupy that one as a rental, and we're going to help you buy your next rental property. We're going to repeat that process until you have 10 rental properties of your own. The thought process is, what I don't want to do is, 30 or 40 years from now, whenever it is that I decide to retire or pass on, I don't want to give my kids, $50 million worth of real estate and have them say, I have no idea how to manage this asset. I've never been a landlord before. I don't understand real estate. I don't understand why it's a good deal or a good investment to do. What we want to do is educate our kids now while we're around and help them become better stewards of money. And so we're going to really help them learn how to manage the rental property with an asset from the very beginning. Give them one. They've lived in it. They understand the property. They understand the benefits and downsides of that particular property, what the problems are with the furnace and the hot water heater and the roof, and that certain things happen that are kind of a little wacky with it, and then have them convert that to a rental, and then buy 10 rentals over time by gifting it to our kids. And so I've got 2 kids. One of them is a sophomore in college. The other one, hopefully, knock on wood, will graduate this next week from high school. It's going to be close. So we're going to help them, though, once they get out of there. One of them is going to college. He's halfway through. The other one may not go to college, and so we're going to gift them down payment money and help them buy their first properties. If they need to get roommates to help support that, that's great. But then we're going to help them get their 10 rental properties and do the Nomad model and educate them. And so the Legacy Nomad is the parents or grandparents that want to help their kids or grandkids do the nomad model. And so when my kids actually get out of the house and they start having kids and their kids go through college and stuff like that, my grandkids, I will also give them money for down payments and help them do nomad, get money out of my estate to kind of deal with my tax issue and kind of get my estate size down, have them grow it and grow in their kind of estate and do the model there. So that's what the Legacy Nomad is about. And so there's going to be a class all on the math and kind of mechanics of how Legacy Nomad works. That's going to be on June 2nd. June 9th, really important. Don't come June 9th. There is a party in here until 6 o'clock, and so we are not having a class because there's a conflict. So June 9th, there is no class scheduled, so we're not doing that. If you want to see what my thought process is on the upcoming schedule, you can go to learntoberichcom/schedule, and you'll be able to see it on there. I will tell you my ideas about what I was initially going to put on the schedule and what my ideas are after this week are different, and so this is probably going to change. The schedule is subject to change at any time, and so I probably will be changing the schedule over time. One of the reasons why I'm going to change it is I realized that I don't know if I want to do 2 preps every week, because I do a class a lot of times on Wednesday, and especially this next month. I think I'm teaching like 5 classes in a row on Wednesday night. I don't want to do a class for every Wednesday, and then also have to do a new prep for every Thursday. And so what I'm probably going to do is reuse the classes I've already taught for NCREG and start over from there and kind of stagger them out. So the people that have kind of already come to the ones on Wednesday night, I'll give you guys room to come, and we'll do it that way. So that's what the upcoming schedule is going to be like. If you haven't been able to, you're welcome to go down and download the handout each week for these classes. So the handouts work like this. I wrote some software, and on Sunday night at midnight, basically when the week changes over in MySQL land, the new handout should become available for this week. So the handout for this week will be up from basically Monday at 1 minute past midnight, all the way through Sunday night at 11:59 is basically when it happens. And then the next week, it should switch to the next week. So that's the week period for the handout. So if you're looking for the handout for next week, you got to wait till Monday morning. If you want the handout for this week, you can do it beforehand or you can download it after. The handout you printed out is probably just the tiniest bit different than what I modified this afternoon because I didn't update it yet, but it's 90% the same, 95% the same. So you can always get the handout on there for the class. Any questions on schedule or kind of handouts or anything like that? Yeah.
Okay, so you keep mentioning a website.
Uh-huh.
So is it that one, or is there an NCREG website, or is it?
Great question.
Or where is it?
Perfect question. So ncreg.com, which stands for Northern Colorado Real Estate Investor Group, NCREIG.com. It's the acronym for that. That actually forwards directly to Meetup for the NCREG website. That has all of the kind of PowerPoint slides and things like that. But since we're going national, and we're going to be teaching these classes in all the different cities, to try to have everyone go and register for NCREG when they're in Atlanta and Colorado Springs and Boise, Idaho, it's not going to be appropriate. And so I happen to own LearnToBeRich.com, and we're going to have all of the Nomad stuff on LearnToBeRich.com. So there's going to be Nomad articles on there. So if you want the schedule for Thursdays, that's the Nomad night. Go to schedule. If you want to have the schedule for everything, and people listening to the recording and you're not local, don't listen to this, but you can go to ncreg.com. It'll have Wednesday and Thursday nights on there. Okay. But for the handouts for Thursdays, learntoberichcom/handout. They're not going to be on the NCREG website because I basically, from NCREG, I link back to this. If you remember the description from tonight, it goes back to that.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
Cool.
Glad I asked.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's a little confusing, but the idea, I could go and record these in my office, in my underwear, on Thursday afternoon, and just kind of publish them out to the world. But now we got whatever numbers of people in the room, 10 people or so in the room, couldn't hear it live and ask questions, and I think it comes across a little better than me just kind of going and hammering it out. So I'm doing these live and recording them. You guys get the benefit of doing that, but it may sound a little weird when I say, whatever market you're in, do this. When really, I'm just talking to you guys, but there's a recording aspect of it as well. Make sense? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so the agenda. So how do you go listen to the Catch-Up Nomad overview video that I did that was on the website? Anyone listen to that? Okay, so the feedback I've been getting is that it was too long. The PowerPoint presentation I did was like 2 hours long, and that part of it was because I added a whole bunch of these kind of like moment sections that we were doing, real estate stats, retirement stats, things of that nature, and it went really, really long. And so instead of doing that, I'm going to shorten it out, and we're going to try to find the middle ground as to when it becomes interesting and too long and too short. So just kind of process, moving forward type stuff. So tonight I'm going to go over what is Nomad, Nomad Investor Club mission and philosophy, the Nomad focus, We're going to go over overcoming fear, and then we're going to have the primary presentation, which is marketing for tenants. We'll do a little Q&A, and then I'll do a little advertisement for real estate agents in other markets that we're looking for. It's kind of sponsor stuff, so you guys can kind of tune out for that one. All right, any questions on the agenda? All right, so what is Nomad? I've kind of hinted at this, and basically it's on the back of this book if you've got a copy of the book. But the idea of Nomad is you buy a home as an owner-occupant, and it's very specifically owner-occupant. If you're not going to buy and move in, it's not Nomad. The Nomad model is you move in as an owner-occupant. Does anyone know why we do owner-occupant?
So you don't have to put as much down.
Exactly. So we went and we bought this property as an investment, and for the first 4 loans or so, you're probably putting 20% down. For the 5th loan and on, you're probably putting 25% down. And so for doing Nomad, we can now come in and put as little as 0% down on the first couple, depending on the situation in the property. But most of the time, we're modeling 5% down. So for the amount of money you would spend to buy 10 rental property, 2.5 rental properties, you can actually buy 10 if you do Nomad, right? Because you're doing 5% down. 5 times 10 is about 50% down. Let's see, let's work this math out again. If you do 5% down, it is about $15,000 on a $300,000 property, so that's 150 grand. And if you had done it straight up investment, you'd have to put 60 grand down, so it's like 2.5 times versus 10 times. Does that make sense? A lot less money. So that's the idea behind moving in and doing owner-occupant. You could definitely do it that way. It is more leveraged, and some people would argue that that's higher risk, right? Because you're actually controlling a larger asset with a smaller amount of money. The market moves against you, you can lose your whole investment. But dollar amount wise, I personally think it's less risky. You put $60,000 down on a $300,000 property and the market goes down $30,000, you've lost 30 grand. If you bought a property as Nomad and you only put 5% down, you put 15K down, and the market moved against you, yeah, you lost $30,000 in equity and cash, but you've only put in 15, so your real loss is $15,000. So it's this kind of weird risk thing. We're going to do a whole class on risk analysis, but it's kind of an interesting way to look at it. Okay, so get back here. And by the way, I run a really informal class. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I do not mind being interrupted. I lose my own train of thought, so you guys derailing me is not a big issue at all. All right, so my home is owner-occupant. You live there for a year. Why do we live there for a year? Why not just buy a property, put 5% down, live there for a month, and move into the next one? It's not capital gains, so that's a good point. Anyone know? It's a rule from the lender. In order to get an owner-occupant loan, the lender requires that you plan to occupy the property for a year. And so we want to comply with all the rules that the lenders say. If the lenders come back in 6 months from now or a year from now and they say to us, hey, listen, you only need to live in a property for 6 months now, guess what? Nomad is now 6 months, right? If they tell us it's a year, Nomad is a year. If they tell us it's 2 years, we got to rewrite Nomad and say, okay, every 2 years you're now buying a property and doing owner-occupant. So it's really a rule that the lenders set up. And so we play by those rules in order to be in compliance. Okay? So we live there for a year. Then we buy a new house. We convert the previous one to a rental. And so tonight we're going to be talking about how to market for tenants. When do you start marketing for tenants? If you're going to live in a house for a year, when do you start marketing for your tenants?
9 days.
6 months. 3 months.
I think personally about 60 days in advance. All right? What does Evergreen do? 60 days. So basically we're trying to do about 2 months in advance, start looking for a tenant. Anything earlier than that, there's not a lot of people looking for something 3 months out, right? But 6 months, 2 months out, 60 days in advance, that's a really good time. And we're going to talk about why you want to find tenants that are looking 60 days in advance instead of waiting till you actually buy your next property and then putting a tenant in there. Besides being able to qualify for loans because you've got a lease in place with your guaranteed rent coming in, not guaranteed, but rent coming in for the property, and being able to use that to help qualify for the next property. Besides doing that, it's so much better when you know you have a tenant and you don't have to deal with vacancy. Make sense? So we're going to do 60 days in advance. So live there for a year, buy a new home, convert the previous to a rental, and then repeat the process until you hit your financial goals. We use 10 properties for the Nomad model. Do you have to buy 10 properties in order to do Nomad? Any thoughts? Do you have to do it to say, listen, either it's 10 or none? No. I personally think if you do one, you buy your first property and owner-occupy, you just make sure that that would be a good rental, right? Let's go ahead and just do that. Suspend disbelief for one transaction. Then come to the classes for a year, plug in, learn about property management, learn about the Nomad model and math, and if 9 months in you say to yourself, this makes sense to me, I like what we're seeing here, let's go do another one, or maybe it's a year and a half later, you're like, okay, I kind of understand it now, let's do another one, we've got a down payment, let's go do number 2. Then you do number 2, you keep coming to class, you keep learning stuff, and you figure out, okay, I feel really comfortable, let's do number 3. If after 3 you decide it's not for me anymore, totally cool. You're so much better off by having 3 rental properties than having none.
James, can you do multi-family with that too?
Yes, yes you can, and we're going to talk about.
Okay with that?
Yes, there's some exceptions to it. So I don't usually go into this, but I'll go into just a quick answer to that. So on the first property, we have kind of a priority preference for how you do loans. If you have VA benefits, if you actually were a veteran and you have VA benefits, you can buy duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes with your VA benefits. And so we recommend you use your VA benefits first to buy a duplex, triplex, or fourplex and use your VA benefits. Then you can do FHA. And if you don't have VA benefits, use FHA first. And with FHA, you can do duplex, triplex, or fourplex. The exception is, if you're out there in the marketplace and you're having a hard time finding a duplex that you can buy at a reasonable price, or one that qualifies for an FHA loan that you can get at the price range that FHA qualifies for, or you'd have to wait 6 months because we don't see a lot of those on our market here in Fort Collins, then I would encourage you to buy a single family home and forego the duplex, triplex, and fourplex. But if you can do a duplex, triplex, or fourplex first with a VA loan or an FHA loan, I would recommend it because it's going to improve your cash flow and help you with the whole model moving forward. And it's a lot easier to convince a lender that you're moving from a duplex to a single family home than it is to say, I'm moving from a single family home, I want to go buy a duplex now and move in. The underwriter is going to be like, what? You want to move from a single family home into the one side of a duplex? I don't get it. Why are you doing that? And so they raise their eyebrow at that. Not to say that you wouldn't get one to go along every once in a while, but it could be challenging to do.
Are most banks comfortable with Nomad?
Yeah, we're following all their rules. They tell us what their rules are. We're like, so you want me to move in and be an owner-occupant for a year? Yes. No worries at all. We're planning on staying there for a year. After that, can I convert it to a rental? Sure. We don't care what you do after that. You got it as an owner-occupant. You live there for a year. We're totally fine. And then you move on to the next one, and you're moving in. You're being an owner-occupant. Some people think, I'm going to kind of cheat the system. I'll tell them I'm moving in, but I'm really not going to move in. Don't do that. The plan works amazing as is. Don't screw with my plan. Because you're going to be like hit with loan fraud and get in a whole bunch of trouble. Don't do it. Okay? The plan works amazingly enough without you messing around with it. So, yeah. All right, so repeat the process. That's kind of what we're doing there. All right, Nomad Investor Club mission and philosophy. So you guys kind of know from Anchor, at least I hope you know from Anchor, we're all about just kind of giving back. We've been doing the anchoring classes since 2003. Classes have been free. We're kind of doing education. In the past, how I've been compensated for it is a certain percentage of the people that come to the room, they're like, James knows what he's doing. He's going to help me buy and sell properties. I'm a real estate broker. You're going to come to me and say, I want to buy a house with you. And that's really what we do, and that's why we do it. When we're going nationwide, I just want to kind of outline what our club mission and philosophy is. So our mission is to help Nomad Club sponsors, which are the real estate agents and lenders, and the nomads themselves form vibrant local communities. There's only 10 people here tonight, but on most Wednesday nights, how many people do we usually have? Curtis, what do you think? 30 plus. Yeah, 30 plus. Sometimes there's waiting lists for the classes we do. So we want to have local communities where people get together and they can share ideas. The class before the class after the class, where people are coming and they're networking and they're learning from each other and sharing information, doing deals with each other a lot of times. So we're trying to do that local community idea around the country in different local markets to explore, implement, and master the Nomad investing strategy. You can't come to one class and get it all. In fact, if you came back to this same class, Marketing for Tenants, a year from now, I guarantee you'll hear different things than you heard at the same time. And I may even use the exact same presentation. But the challenge is, I say something to you, and your mind's going off into like all these tangents about stuff, and you're not hearing what I said next. So you come back and you hear the class again and again, you're going to get more stuff. And so we're talking about mastery, not kind of this, just dabbling and kind of learn a little stuff and not doing that. We really want you to be great at this stuff. Okay? So implement, master, and explore, implement, master the Nomad strategy. We change lives for the better by helping people do Nomad. We cultivate the Go-Giver philosophy. How many people have read the Go-Giver book? Okay, that's a great book, and that's sort of our philosophy for Nomad. We want to go out there and give amazing amounts of value, and then people who decide they like what they hear, they're interested in the kind of our philosophy, and they relate to us, and they want to do stuff, they will come and do business with us. That's the philosophy, okay? We do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's Matthew 7:12. That's kind of our core philosophy there. And then we celebrate the Nomad lifestyle. Once you get on the Nomad path, you don't have to stress out about it. There's a lot of people, one of the biggest groups of nomads is catch-up nomad. People that are about 40 years old, they wake up one morning and they realize, oh my gosh, I only have saved $100,000 for my retirement. I need to get my butt in gear, otherwise I'm going to really have a hard time. Okay? And so those people, they need to get on the nomad path, in my opinion. They need to get on the nomad path, but once they get on the path and they know, okay, I'm doing this plan, they can actually relax and celebrate. They don't have to get all stressed out and be wondering what I'm going to do next. They know that if they're buying a property every year, they're going to have 10 properties at the end of 10 years, and I'll show you the math about how it works. It's a very good model. Okay? So we celebrate the nomad lifestyle and kind of enjoy that. Any questions on our philosophy or mission? Nomad Investor Club focus. You'll notice this looks a lot like the NCRAG kind of focus slide. So what makes this different from like ICOR or some other real estate investor club in town? Any people know there's other investor clubs in town? They focus on different things? Okay, so what do we focus on? Our primary areas of focus: buying nomad houses, financing nomad houses, landlord and property management the nomad way, analyzing nomad deals, specifically cash-on-cash return, and we also teach lease option exits as a way to speed up nomad. Selling on lease option, which is part of the nomad model, and then asset protection for nomads, the things we are not doing, what the other investor clubs in town or other towns around the country can do. We're not selling houses. We don't do that with nomad. We keep them as rentals. We're not doing fix and flip. Go to another club if you want to learn about that. We're not buying on lease options. We're not doing creative finance, so no subject to, no wraps, no all-inclusive visa trust. We sometimes teach that in NCRAG, but we're not doing it for nomad. And then we're not teaching wholesaling. Wholesaling is when you go out there, you find a deal, and you sell your deal to another investor. You make a little fee for doing that. We're not teaching that. Okay? So this is what we're not focused on. This is what we are focused on with nomad. Any questions on that? Sweet. All right, overcoming fear. So one of the things we wanted to do, Brian and I talked, this must have been the end of last year, we talked about this idea that what we should really do a class on is how to like solve everyone's problems, how to like fix the things that are kind of holding people back from doing things. And really, what's holding people back? And primarily, it's fear. And so we thought about doing one class on this where we just took care of everyone's fear and solved it for the duration, right? The challenge is only 40 people or so could come to that class. And having one class out of the year is not enough to kind of help you overcome fear. You almost need to like exercise it like it's a muscle. And so we decided to do, instead of teaching one class and just jamming everything in there, we said, okay, we're going to do one slide every week where we talk about some strategies or some resources to help you overcome fear and kind of move forward and do what you're supposed to do. So Tony Robbins does a lot of great stuff, in my opinion, about overcoming fear. There's 2 videos up here that you should probably go watch and kind of listen to him about how he recommends overcoming fear. But the 2 ideas that he shared, and one kind of test he kind of does, he says 2 ideas. Number 1, find something you're more afraid of than fear. So what will happen if you don't do it? For the catch-up nomads, as an example, you're 40 years old, you've only saved $100,000. What are you going to do if you decide not to do nomad? You're going to put your money in the stock market. Stock market's going to go up, I don't know, 5%, 6%, 7%, 8%, 10% maybe a year, and you're going to have X number of dollars by the time you retire. It's not going to be enough. If you do the math yourself, you'll see that that's actually not going to be enough money. And so what are you going to do? Are you going to eat dog food? If you don't have enough money to kind of live in your retirement, you're going to need to live for a certain number of years. You're going to kind of reduce your expenses and actually eat Alpo or whatever the dog food you want to do? I don't know. So maybe that's what you have to do. You have to kind of think to yourself, if I don't do this, here's my outcome. I'm going to have to go eat dog food. So what will you miss out on? If you don't do the nomad model or you don't go buy rental property, you could actually not be going on vacation and enjoying yourself when you're, 55 or whatever it is. You can decide, I'm going to go do this so I can go on vacations and quit my job early and kind of enjoy more passive income. Or you can work till you're 70. You can be a greeter at Walmart. Whatever you want to do. And then what limitations do we have? Go ahead and ask yourself what limitations would be. And then Tony talks about this rocking chair test. He says, imagine you're 80 years old and you're sitting on your front porch in a rocking chair. What are you going to regret not doing? Are you going to look back and say, in 2016, I should have bought a rental property. Fort Collins was going crazy, or whatever city you're in, and I really should have just bought my first rental property. Interest rates were at all-time low, and the next year I should have bought another one. I mean, the property now, properties are worth $600,000. I could have bought that thing for $270. So think back on that and decide, whether or not you should move forward on that. And then focus on the why. Your reasons for doing something, according to Tony Robbins, come first. The mechanics, how you do it, comes later. And we'll teach you how to do it very mechanically, but really you need your own reason why to do it. Okay? So that's the overcoming fear slide. Any questions on that? I love how I asked, are there any questions, and I turn my head and don't even look to see if anyone's raising their hand. Feel free to interrupt me if you need to, so. All right, marketing for tenants. That's what we're covering here. I'm going to grab myself some fluids. But basically, we're going to cover some inner game stuff for tenants. Then we're going to go over a whole bunch of marketing methods. Craigslist, Zillow, yard signs, those are my top 3. Then some stuff that we don't use nearly as much, but in softer rental markets, you'll probably want to use them. We are in a really, really hot rental market. There's a shortage of rental property and a very high demand for them. So you can get by with doing very little. But the larger stuff, when the market softens up, we're going to use some of these other ones. Okay, so you can reference those later if you need to. Well, that's what we're going to cover tonight. All right, so the mentality of going out there and doing marketing for tenants. And a lot of people miss this, right? They kind of put people in their properties that really are unqualified, that they haven't thought through. The question you should be asking yourself when you're out there searching for a tenant, when you're marketing for a tenant is, I own a $250,000 property. Okay? If I had $250,000 sitting here on this table, would I loan this money to the person I'm putting in the property? Because you are loaning them a $250,000 asset. Does that make sense? So if you wouldn't trust them with $250,000 collateralized, it's nailed to the ground, right? But if you wouldn't trust them with a $250,000 asset, you probably shouldn't rent to them. That's how you have to think about it. Okay? So when you screen tenants, you should be thinking in terms of, would I loan this person whatever the value of your property is? All right, so we talked about this a little bit, but you want to start early. So let's talk about doing your first nomad property. You go out there, you buy your first property, you live there for a year, you come to class, you're learning everything. About 10 months in, you say to yourself, okay, now I'm going to start marketing for my first tenant. So you're going to start doing all the marketing we're going to talk about tonight, and you're looking for them 60 days prior. Why do you want tenants that are looking for properties 60 days in advance? What's the difference between a tenant that, their landlord kicks them out because they weren't taking care of the property, or they're on a month-to-month lease and the landlord is selling their property and they wait to the very last minute to start looking for their next property, versus finding someone who's saying, okay, we are not going to stay here 60 days from now, 2 months from now. Maybe we should start looking for another property. What's the difference in mentality of those two people? Any ideas?
Preparation?
Yeah, I think one of them is a planner. Right? They're thinking far ahead. They're thinking in advance. They're going to say, I need to save money. I need to be prepared in case something happens, and they're more likely to do that when they're thinking 30, 60, 90 days ahead. If someone is kind of not thinking more than a week ahead and kind of living paycheck to paycheck, those are not the people you want to have as tenants. And you're going to find more of those people when they're looking for properties and yours is available immediately. They're not going to be, the people that are not planners are not going to be there looking for properties 60 days ahead of time, because that's not their nature. So you're going to find a better quality tenant if you look earlier.
The other thing I noticed too is the ones that are really pumped about the property.
Yeah.
Usually have the worst credit. They come in and they're like, oh, they want it right away, and they're super pumped.
Yeah.
And you pull their credit and it's horrible.
Yep, because they're not planners. Yeah. They don't save their money, and they're not dealing with, I have 3 months or 6 months worth of income saved up in case I lose my job. They're just living paycheck to paycheck. And so they're not planning ahead. So you really do want planners.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What if you don't have 60 days in the space that you're in? Say you get a job offer and you need to pick up and leave, but you've been in your place for, long enough to be a nomad or what have you, but you only have 30 days or, a couple weeks or whatever it is. How do you sift through those that don't plan versus those that do plan if you don't have 60 days?
That's a great question. So there's 2 things you can do, right? You can either work in a shorter period of time and try to fill that and have no vacancy, or you could say, I want a planner and I'm willing to pay a month or a month and a half of vacancy, cover the cost of the property to get a better quality tenant in there. So you could do one of 2 things, right? You can say, I will take someone as long as they really are qualified, and be as strict as you normally are with that, but tell them, I need you to qualify like everyone else, and you should do this for fair housing rules. But basically make sure they're qualified and be prepared to pay a month of vacancy. Right? And so you're at risk for, $1,500 probably in this market for kind of holding costs for a property. I will tell you, $1,500, some people will hear me say that and be like, wow, I don't want to spend $1,500 to hold a property. It is cheap compared to a bad tenant damaging your stuff and leaving your property. $1,500 is nothing. Okay, so I would prefer you actually have a vacancy and get a better quality tenant than to try to fill your property with a crappy tenant and deal with the consequences later.
Okay.
Yep. All right, so if you don't need tenants to be in place immediately, you're asking for trouble, they're constantly living in a state of emergency, allows you to target your highest possible rent and drop it if you're not finding a tenant without stress or cost. So, let's say you did some research and you determined fair market rent for your property is about $1,800. You've got 60 days in order to find a tenant. Might you try $1,895 to see if you get it for maybe a week or two? You've got 8 weeks to do this. Why not put it out there at $1,895 and see if someone really loves your property and wants to pay a small premium? Or maybe that really is market rent and you kind of didn't find good comps. Much easier to do that when you have 60 days kind of runway to go with than if you just wait until the last day, okay, last tenant has moved out, now I'm going to start marketing the property for rent, and now I got to put someone in there immediately, let me start at $1,800. So what I would recommend you do is start off at kind of like the tiny bit of a stretch number, market it for a week. If you're not getting calls, drop it a little bit, keep marketing it, and find out where you are. At like 30 days runway, I'd be a little bit more aggressive about getting somebody in there. And so I'd make sure my rent was where it needed to be or a little bit lower, right? Does Evergreen do some similar stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So these are all really good practices. All right, you'll need to make sure your property is prepared to rent, so maintain your properties while they're rented. If you're living in it for the first one, you're going to maintain your property pretty well, at least I hope. Okay? But once you get another property and you put another tenant in there, if the tenant has things that need to be fixed, take care of your property. Do the fixing. We're setting aside maintenance money in our model for Nomad. You should be spending that money on your property to maintain it. You don't wait for your tenant to move out to go ahead and do all your maintenance then. You do all the maintenance you can normally do on the property while the tenant is in there, and then stuff that you do between tenants, like replace carpet and things like that, you try to have that plan so that the day they moved out, you've scheduled it 2 weeks ago, you're going to have the carpet guy go in there that day and take care of it and get it done. Okay? Minimize that vacancy time, but all the other maintenance stuff you should be doing well in advance. If you've got drippy sinks or stuff needs to be done on a property, take care of it, get it done. Better to have your tenants happy and know that you're on top of your stuff and kind of modeling that. All right? Then also, when you start early, you can start looking for your next Nomad property too if you're owner occupying this one. So at that same 60-day period, you're finding a tenant, you're also starting to look for your next property. And it might even be a little bit earlier than that, especially in this market. So you might start about 90 days in advance. In a more sane market, yeah, 60 days is probably a decent amount of time. You want to ideally be under contract, 45 to 35 days ahead of when you need to move out. So that's about what it takes to close. And there's sometimes you go under contract and you find out that your inspection is going to be some weird issues, right? You find out that the property has an inspection issue and you got to start over. So you've got to be a little bit flexible with that too. Any questions on starting early? Cool. Fair housing laws. This is not a class on fair housing. Here are some resources up here for fair housing stuff. You cannot discriminate against people when they're trying to occupy your property. And there's a whole list of things you're not allowed to discriminate against right up here. But go read these laws and realize you can't do those things. And there's some really weird cases where you may not think that you're discriminating, but you are. So definitely go read that and be careful about it. Any questions on fair housing?
Yeah, does that apply to like Section 8 and stuff like that?
Absolutely. It applies to everybody. Fair housing is a universal rule for the Fed. Basically, it's a nationwide law. Yep. Cannot discriminate. All right, so let's get into marketing fence. So the philosophy is do as much of this list as you can. Are you going to hit every single item on here every single time? Absolutely not. In this market, you probably don't even need to do half of these things. Our market is so hot, you put up an ad on Craigslist, you put a sign in the yard, you're probably getting a bunch of tenant calls. Okay? But when the market softens and the market goes in cycles, for those of you that haven't been around for a while, this is not normal. Okay? This is an extreme market. It's an extreme seller's market when you're going after to buy properties. It's also an extreme market for landlords. Very, very pro-landlord right now. Okay? So quality comes from quantity. You're not going to go and say, I just want to go and put up the perfect ad because the perfect ad is going to give me that one perfect tenant. No. What you really want to do is you want to put up a lot of stuff, gather a lot of people coming in, and sift and sort in order for quality. The more people you have applying, the more likely you're going to be able to find someone if you have your criteria really high. And I think you should do that. Your standards should be really high for your tenants. You're going to maintain what I would consider a premium property, and you're going to want premium tenants there. Okay. So generate a number of tenant applications to find a great one. Most of the time you won't be able to do all of it, and just talk about that. You'll primarily be focusing on direct calls. If you're in the business of real estate investing, a lot of times we build what's called a buyer's list. So we might actually be constantly buying properties to then lease option as an exit. And in those markets, we're actually building a buyer's list. We're having multiple people call in and say, if this property isn't a good fit, I'll put you on my buyer's list and I'll contact you if I have another property come up. Since you're doing Nomad and you're doing one a year, the chance of you needing a buyer's list is really low, unless you're also speeding up Nomad with lease options. Then you might have a buyer's list, which is why I mentioned it on here. Okay? But we're going to primarily be talking tonight about focusing on direct calls coming in to rent your property, not building a buyer's list. Brute force versus elegant solutions, possibly. So some people think, you know, I'm going to really take my time. I'm going to do the best ad. I'm going to have the best ad out there. I personally think you should brute force it. You know, if you can go out there and kind of work really nice and do really, really high quality, I can outwork you and I'll outperform you because I'll do 10 times as much as you're doing. I won't get nearly as good a quality up front, but by using a ton more quantity, I will get better quality than you in the long run. Okay? And so this idea of I'll outwork you, you should be doing that as your mantra while you're out there doing this. I'm willing to do more than anyone else, that's why I'm going to beat them and I'm going to get the best tenants. That's the philosophy you should be thinking of. Okay? All right. Pareto's principle, the 80-20 rule. So 80% of your results will come from 20% of your work. This is the idea that in this market, you don't need to do the full list. If you can only do one thing, sign in the yard. If I can only do two things, sign in the yard and Craigslist. If I can only do three things, sign in the yard, Craigslist, and Zillow. In that order. Okay? So after that, some of the other stuff, it's definitely the trivial many versus the important few, or whatever they call it. Okay? The Pareto principle basically says 80% of your results will come from 20% of your work. And so this is the 20% that's super, super important. Those are the ones to focus on. The other ones will get you, especially in softer markets, they'll get you good tenants. But right now, we're going to focus on the kind of significant few. All right, so let's talk about Craigslist. I'm talking about Craigslist primarily, but if you have other local real estate rental type websites in your marketplace, I'm talking to people nationwide now, if you have other ones in your marketplace, you should look at those as well. Here in Northern Colorado, we have another website that is also like Craigslist. It's called northernColoradoRentals.com. And if I were you, I would treat that like I would Craigslist largely, and I would do ads on that as well. Okay? But here, Craigslist. So it largely applies to any other real estate website. Craigslist gets the overwhelming majority of real estate rental traffic. It is by far the big dog. So if you're going to do stuff on there, definitely use Craigslist. We're going to primarily use the for rent section, housing for rent. If we're doing rent to own, we might use a different category. We might use for sale as well. Okay? But primarily tonight we're talking about using the for rent section. Spying your competitors. So in this, Craigslist is great because you can go look at all of the other people running ads. You can see what Evergreen is running on Craigslist. You can see what other rental management companies are running on Craigslist. You can go see what the other individuals are running and try to model what they're doing. Say, I like this, I want to model more of that, I want to do mine like that. I don't like this, I'm going to try to avoid that, it's a bad idea. Go out there and look and spy on your competitors. You should be doing this to find rental comps to begin with, but you should also be doing this to see what other people are doing. Okay? See what else is normal in your market. Yeah, it's kind of important if you're in a different market, because different markets have kind of different nuanced stuff. For example, there's some markets a little bit west of here where when properties are for sale, they don't actually list the address. It's all blind marketing. You have to call the real estate agent in order to find out the address of the property. They'll give you the specs on it, but they won't tell you where it is. So just realize in certain markets, things are different. All right, so what to include in your ad? In my opinion, you should absolutely maximize the number and quality of your photos. This matters a lot. It's one of the most important things you can do. So if Craigslist allows you to put up, I forget what they did, like 20 pictures, 25 pictures, something like that, maximize the number of photos you have on there and the quality. I'm going to go over some stuff on quality here in a minute. Not maximize, but put down the number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms. That's important for people. The square footage of the property, that's also important for people. The garage, carport, or other applicables. Parking structure, access, the rental amount, important stuff. Consider including the deposit amount in some cases. I'll tell you, in some cases, I don't want to put the deposit amount. In other cases, I do want to put it in there, and I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. Anything else that's critically important in your area, so if it's in Old Town Fort Collins or near certain features or something like that, you may want to put those on there, or near mass transit or things like that. You know, whatever is important in your local area. and then optionally a link for them to get additional info. And I don't think Craigslist likes you putting links, but there are other services that will allow you to put links. So just realize that. Any questions on what to include in your ad? It's an easy class. You guys are super easy. All right, so contact info. So I've got a couple friends of mine. They've kind of moved into the area, or they were somewhere else, and they kind of came back, and they've got these out of the area cell phone numbers. How do you go aware of this? They went to college somewhere else, or they took their cell phone from where they lived originally. They went to college, and they got their job, and they kept their cell phone number from where they were 5 years ago. Everyone aware of this kind of thing going on? Don't do that. Okay? People want to see a local telephone number when they're calling a rent ad. They don't want to think they're calling to another city or state and thinking that they're calling out of the area. Even though you are local, you should go get a local number. And you can go get one from Google Voice. Or get another calling service system where you can do that. But Google Voice will give you a free number, and it'll be local. Make sure you get a local one. And then your email, I personally would recommend you use the Craigslist anonymous email feature. It'll cut down on some of your spam, because some people will go and they will grab all the email addresses that are not anonymized. Anonymized? I think that's a word. Made anonymous, and they'll go ahead and try to email those people and just spam them. So if you use the anonymous email on Craigslist, it'll cut down on your spam, so I'd recommend that too. Any questions on contact info? You don't have to put up your address or anything like that. You don't need to do that. So just put your phone number and your email, and I would use the anonymous one. All right, let's talk about photos. Photos make a huge difference. I told you to maximize the quantity of photos you use, and amateur versus professional photos make a huge difference. I'm going to show you some slides here in a minute with examples of homes. It's the exact same floor plan. It's not the exact same house. One set of photos is from our local multiple listing service. The other set of photos is a set of photos that we had a professional photographer go out and take photos of it. Same house, not exact same house, but same floor plan. So you can see it's the same type of stuff. You're going to see the same angles. But one was taken by an amateur, one was taken by a professional. And I think you'll see the difference when you look at it. So is it worth it to hire a professional to do photos once that you can reuse every time you rent it? Like you're going to have a nomad property for maybe 30 years. Is it worth having photos done once, paying $100 to do that? I totally think it's worth it. Well, let's go see. What do you think? Which one's the amateur, which one's the pro? These are unedited. This is as they would appear. So this is the one that actually showed up in the MLS. This is the one the pro took. Kind of crappy, right? That one's a lot worse. What about that? Can you tell the difference? This is the pro. No, this is the amateur. This is the pro, right? You guys can tell. This is not just me imagining things when I look at them, right? I'm not justifying the $100 I spent. I'm actually showing you. This is what people are selling them with in the MLS. This is a real estate agent being lazy.
So lazy.
Right?
It's not that expensive to get professional.
It's like 110 bucks. That's what I paid for these. Right? And I don't think it's the difference between the stuff, right? It's not the little things that are out. It's just the angle and the lighting and kind of how they do it, right? Makes a big difference. There's the backyard.
Where'd the grass go?
Well, it's not the same house. And this is new construction.
Okay.
So this is a brand new house. It's vacant. They took photos of it. This is like the same house, a different one, but the same model. But just the angle and kind of the visual of it. Ignore that there's grass in one and not grass in the other. It's just crazy. Insane, right? Isn't that a big difference?
Okay, so you are taking these furnished. Are you renting them furnished?
No. This happens to be where a tenant is inside.
Okay, so if I have photos of it furnished, staged,
Yep.
I can use those and just say it's unfurnished.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, you basically say, this has got some tenant stuff in there. You're not renting it furnished and so on.
Okay.
But in an ideal world, you'd either take photos of it fully staged or you take photos of it vacant. Right? Especially if you have really crappy furniture in there from a tenant. Right? You wouldn't want to do that and kind of advertise if you could avoid it. So in an ideal world, when your house is all done up nice and pretty, maybe you take photos of it then while you're living there. Assuming you've got good taste and you can take photos of your stuff. Right?
Carpet cleaning, wipe down.
Yeah. Although, yes, it definitely makes some difference, but I'm not sure with every photo you'd be able to see that. But yeah, I think you do clean it. Yep. All right, and then when you're ready for the next one, you're not using photos of the new tenants' crappy stuff 60 days before they move out. You're using the photos from when you took the photos originally that you've got. So you got to save all the stuff that you're doing, right? You're going to have a folder on your hard drive, ideally in Dropbox, so it's all backed up, and you're going to have your stuff in there and say, advertising photos. And then you're going to save every copy of every ad you run so that next year, when you go run the same ad, you're not trying to remember, what did we do last time? Did we advertise this as a 3-bedroom, or did we advertise it as a 3-bedroom with an office, or did we do 4 bedrooms? What did we do? You're going to have copies of all your ads, all of your yard signs, all of your Craigslist ads, all of the, if you're going to do flyers or anything like that. You're going to have all this stuff saved to save yourself time. Get organized now and save it all in Dropbox and keep an accurate log of all this stuff. I call it advertising swipe file. I'll mention it later. Okay? So going through the photos. Big difference, right? I mean, just a little bit of kind of professional, just putting the lights on, guys. I mean, why are you taking, it's like dark. Yeah. Yeah, a little better lens, a little better angles on there. So you can see, it does make a big difference. I think it's worth $100. Maybe you don't. I think it's worth it. All right, so Craigslist response rates. Let's talk about this. So how many people know how Craigslist works? You basically post an ad up, right? And then as people post their ad, they go on top of yours, pushing yours down. New ad comes in, pushes yours down. New ad comes in, pushes yours down. New ad comes in. They keep going until you get to whatever it is, 30 on the page. And then when the 31st one comes on, yours goes off page 1 and goes to page 2. So people have to click, see page 2 on this side, and then they go see yours, and it's over here. And as more get added, it keeps going down the page. Does that make sense? Okay. So could you see that if your ad's at the very top, and people are coming to Craigslist and they're going to the page that shows all the rental property, you're getting the most eyeballs when your ad is brand new and it's at the very top of the page. And as people put more on there and you move down the page, fewer and fewer people are looking at that. As soon as you go to page 2, a lot less people are clicking on next page to see that. Okay? So responses decline as your ad drops down the page. If you post an ad on Monday morning at 8 o'clock, by the time 5 o'clock comes around, if you're in a fast-moving city, your ad is probably on page 2. And the number of calls you're getting is way down. So you got to renew your ad at the maximum frequency. I don't know if that's like the next thing. I don't know if I say it here, but I say it later. Oh, here it is. Repost your ad. Look at this. I'm right on. Repost your ad as frequently as Craigslist will allow, every 3 days. So as soon as that little repost button appears from your admin of your account, you want to click that thing to renew it. Okay.
Haven't they stopped allowing you to do that so many times now? Because mine, you can't repost them after a certain amount of time.
After you repost them like 10 times or something like that?
It's not even that many.
Okay, so if that's the case, then you go take your content for your ad, which you've saved in your swipe file, and redo it.
You can just hit delete and then renew, and you don't even have to do that.
Oh, okay.
I just hit delete and then renew.
Yeah, so you can try that. But the idea is repost your ad or do the equivalent. If you have to go redo it completely from scratch, great. Save the content of your ad. Once you write a good one, save that to a text file or whatever you're going to do on your hard drive so that you can go do it. Because what's going to happen is sometimes unscrupulous other landlords are going to say, that house is too nice. I don't like it. I'm going to flag it. And we're going to talk about what flagging and ghosting is in a minute. But I'm going to flag it. And if your ad gets flagged, you're not going to be able to repost it. You're going to need to go in there and actually redo the whole ad. And so copying it from your hard drive to redo saves you a ton of time. Little work up front saves you a lot of time later. So significantly declines once it drops off page 1. We talked about that. Some people might use different ads that start out in different days and times to maximize overall exposure and spread out call volume. This is especially true if you would consider renting your property or doing a rent-to-own. You can have 2 different ads running. One's a for rent ad, one's a for a rent-to-own type ad, and you can alternate those. One you start on Monday morning, the other one you start on Tuesday morning. By the time Wednesday comes around, you could renew the first ad, and then actually Thursday you renew the second ad. Okay? And you can use this kind of idea to do multiple ads if you have other ones to do. All right? Talk about that. Don't be alarmed with slow responses. That's why we have 60 days in advance. So if you're running your first ad and you're not getting any calls, first of all, check your telephone number. It's the first mistake most people make. They like put up the wrong number, or they don't have a telephone number up there at all, and they wonder why they're not getting calls. But go ahead, and it could be ghosted, which we'll talk about later. But if you don't do that, don't get stressed out. Do another test, run it it for a week, repost it maybe 3 times, kind of give yourself the week time, and then if you're not getting calls, maybe it's your photos or maybe your price is too high. And then go ahead and reduce the price a little bit and keep running your ads. You give yourself 60 days so that you can find somebody. Okay? If you had started, the day after it went vacant, yeah, you should be nervous because you're paying for that. 60 days in advance, you're not. All right, that's what we talked about. Ad headlines and copy. So you could, and in my opinion, you should vary your ads. So similar, you could vary basically different primary text, describe the property differently. Some use a table layout where you kind of have, a little bit of HTML type stuff, although Craigslist is moving away from that. You can do some HTML in there. Basically do some stuff in there. You can do mostly images. You would do a floor plan, put photos, put a comparison table as an image. You can do a video tour if you want to do that. Make your ads different, especially if you're running different ads. Okay, so that they're not all exactly the same, because you're going to get in trouble if you post the same ad 4 times. Okay, do one ad and make a different ad and do that. Consider adding deadlines to create urgency. This is kind of an interesting one. So if you're going to go out there and someone calls you up and they say, hey, listen, I want to see the property. Can I meet you out there Saturday at 11? You say, absolutely. Now you probably want to go do another ad, and you want to do your ad that says, rental open house or open showing, 12 o'clock on Saturday. Come by, and you can see the property. I'm going to be there from 12 until 12:15 if you want to see the property. Okay? You're already going out there at 11. You might as well run another ad telling people, come on by and see the rental property. I'm going to be there. And that creates some urgency for people to do it.
Another thing I found on that too is if you set an appointment to show it the next day, as opposed to just showing it when they call right there, the success rate is much higher if you do that same day.
That's interesting. I've not found that to be true, but that's
when
what
I
it's at.
schedule the next day, a lot of times they won't show, or 50-50.
Oh, you're saying if you do it right then?
Yeah, like if you could try to get them right on the spot.
I found that to be
much
true.
higher rate of showing them. Like, because all the appointments I'll show the next day, it's like 50% of those will come.
Yeah, so this a couple things I'll comment on that. And you're right about that. I thought you were saying it the other way. I thought you were saying if you schedule it the next day, you get a better turnout. I have not found that.
No, that's not true.
Yeah, but if you do get them to go right away, I can meet you over there in like 15 minutes, or I can meet you over there in 30 minutes, or whatever it is. Or if you happen to live there, I'll meet you here tonight at 6 o'clock. That's fine. You can do that. If you're gonna do it the next day, you really should call and confirm before you start driving out there, because you are gonna find a lot of people on no-shows. So definitely do that. If you're going to do a price increase or do a rent to own or something like that, you can also use that to create urgency. Any questions on ad copy, headlines, things of that nature?
Do you think there's a better time to initially post it?
There probably is a better time to initially post it. I don't have a lot of data on that. At one point I probably had data, but I don't have a lot of data on that. Do you guys have data on time of day or anything you guys use?
Well, I find after 5 o'clock you get the most calls, it seems for me.
So post the ad or renew it after 5?
Like at 4.
There you go. That's a good idea. You guys do anything special?
Our phones never start ringing after about 4 or 5 o'clock.
So it's people like after afternoon type looking at stuff?
After
They get off work and then they start calling.
So there you go. That's kind of a good time of day. Do it in the evening to do it. There was a website at one point that showed Craigslist traffic and things of that nature, but.
Can you explain the urgency one again? I kind of.
Yeah, so
what
like.
are some examples? So you're just saying like you're going to go out there the next day, put it in there?
Yeah.
Showing this apartment at X time.
That's right. You go ahead and create a totally different ad that says, rental open house, 12 o'clock to 12:15 or 12 o'clock to 12:30. Come see this rental property. Here's the rent. Here's some photos. I'll be there from 12 to 12:15. If you're interested in this property, show up. You're going to be there anyway. It gives you an opportunity to run another ad, get more eyeballs on it, and create some urgency for them to come see it. And then the person who saw it at 11, you tell them too, I'm having an open house at 12. We're going to have a whole bunch of people through. So if you're really interested, I'd go home and fill out an application right now and get it over to us immediately. It is first come, first serve. First person who's qualified gets it.
What do you think about doing the discounts on rent?
I have a whole bunch of different philosophies on that, which we probably should cover in another class. But there's a whole bunch of it. There's a whole bunch of theory and ideas on discounting rents and what you do and how you do that. But yeah, you could definitely do some interesting stuff with that.
Okay, how about you just said the opposite of what you said before?
What's that?
That you want the 60 days to get the better tenant,
Mhm.
and now you want to create urgency to
Yes.
get the tenant now. So
That's right.
which
So
way?
they're not conflicting. That's a
They're
great
not,
point.
okay.
No. So here's what it is, right? You're saying, okay, the property is going to be available July 1st. So you're not changing that deadline at all,
Oh, okay.
right? But you are trying to tell them the first qualified person that comes in gets it. So if you have 3 people that are all amazing and they're all planners and they're thinking ahead and they're trying to get in the property for July 1st, you want to get them out there and you want to get them to move. You don't want them thinking, I've got 60 days. You want to lock them down and say, you're renting this property in July 1st. And they want that, right? They don't want to have a great property go past.
Right.
They want to lock it in. And so you want to create some urgency to get them to take action, but you want to find a good quality person.
Okay.
And your criteria, when we do tenant screening, that's not today, we do tenant screening, we talk about, processing the tenant application, you're going to have written criteria of what a qualified tenant looks like for you. And the first person that comes in that qualifies using your criteria, the grading system you set up, you need to take for fair housing reasons. Okay? So we're going to set up really strict criteria, and we're going to make sure everyone goes through the same process and we're fair to everybody. But the first person that gets it in wins. Yep. So they're not conflicting, but it's a great question. All right. Any other questions about this stuff? Quality versus quantity. So we talked about this kind of idea before. I'm just going to run through some things. So change your ads to cater to your preference, but you can generate a lot more calls with generic ads or fewer calls to get more qualified people. So here's like the general idea. If I go run an ad that says 3-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 2-bath property for rent, 2-car garage near Old Town, available for rent July 1st, call me. Am I going to get more calls with that ad than if I say 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage property for rent near Old Town, rent is $2,400 a month, security deposit is $3,000, and you need to have a 720 credit score, and you need to have no felonies, and your income must be 4 times rent? Am I going to get more calls with the second ad that's more specific, or more calls with the first one that's very generic and open? You're going to get a lot more calls with the first one. And so it's this delicate balance of, do you want to screen really, really hard in the ad and take very few phone calls? Or do you want to kind of open up the faucet a little bit, let it flow, and be able to screen people through? And when you're new, you may want to practice a little bit so that you don't scare away one guy. And so you may want to open it up a little bit more than if you have very limited time, you're an engineer, and you're really, really busy, and you only want really qualified people to call you, and you've got plenty of time. But as the time kind of constricts, you might want to open it up and be a little bit more lenient in the screening process up front. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, I have a question on that too.
Yeah.
One thing I'm trying to do is get more of my applications back.
Yeah.
So what I'm wondering is things, are you going to talk about that at all? Because I'm
not here. We're going to do tenant screening, totally different class.
People, and I don't get 100% back. So I don't know if there's a way you can get your applications back, more and more people interested. Or maybe you're scaring them off by asking them questions.
I think personally scaring people off is good. I'd rather have them leave early than find out later that they're not a good fit. If you tell them what your rules are and that you're firm but fair and here's how it works, it saves you time from having to process through, for lack of a better word, kind of crappy tenants. If they're pre-screening themselves out, like a great example is the felony question, right? Rather than get down the road and have someone apply who has a felony, my policy is no felonies, period. End of story. You have a felony, you don't qualify. And you can discriminate based on that because it's not a protected class. Okay? But if you basically come in and you actually are trying to apply, and you have a felony, let me save you the trouble of going out and seeing the property. Let me save you putting in an application and me charging you $25 over any credit. Because if you have a felony, you're done. And they'll tell you, but my felony was 25 years ago. She was 16, I was 18. Her dad got really pissed off. He called the police. Sorry, buddy. Maybe someone else will hear that, but I don't kind of say selectively, oh, that's okay, but someone who peed in front of kids on the playground because they were drunk or something like that, that's not okay. I don't make the distinction. If you have a felony, we're done, right? And I'd rather know that up front.
So you prep them a little bit of what you're looking
Yes.
for.
Yeah, during tenant screening.
I do that too, and I wasn't sure if I should because some people just don't turn in their app after that.
Right, that's what you want. That's what you want. Yeah. Yeah, and whatever's important for you. If you say felonies are okay, maybe you had a kind of hiccup in the past and you want to give people a second chance, totally cool. In a market like this where the rental pool is really strong, I want A+ type tenants. Later on, maybe I kind of lower the bar and I say, okay, here are the felonies I would accept, and you have to have this criteria written down for fair housing. This is the criteria I would accept, and so when you do the phone call, you go and you go over that process with them. Do you have a felony? Yes. Felony does not automatically exclude you. These are the felonies I'm okay with. Was your felony this? I'm going to check. You're going to have to provide me documentation to verify that. but this is what I want to see.
Okay, quick tangent on that. What about people that have the dogs, or what are they called, comfort pets? Or legally you have to.
You are legally required.
So you just.
That's a discrimination type thing. You cannot turn them away because it's not a pet. Yeah, it's kind of a weird law, but yeah, you can't discriminate against that. Service animals. Yeah. Yep. All right.
Can that be any pet, or does it have to be specific?
There's probably specific laws about
Can
it.
they say a hamster or a cat?
I don't know if a hamster qualifies. I'm not sure.
What about smoking?
Yeah, you can say your criteria for that. It's not a protected class. Yep. Yep. All right. So I talked about that. You must make X dollars a month to practice and perfect your tenant screening process. I go over that. The idea that if you're new, you may want to take more calls to practice, so you don't screw it up on someone who's really a good tenant. Yeah. And by the way, that happens. Clients of mine call me after the fact. They're like, I had a really good tenant. I probably should have accepted that, but I was kind of a prick. So you learn some lessons, but what are you going to do? Call to action. So tell them what you want them to do. It's not enough to run an ad that says 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage for rent. You need to say, call me for an appointment, go to my website for more information, call my 24-hour recorded information line to get additional information, then call me for an appointment. But tell them what you want them to do. Give them direction. It seems really subtle, and it probably doesn't make that big of a difference because people on there are looking for rent, but it does make a difference, telling them what the next step in the process is. And I think it sets you up from a kind of big psychological standpoint. It sets you up as you tell them what the rules are, they jump through hoops, and they comply. That's what you want. You want a tenant who's going to comply with your rules. So your rule is you call me and you schedule a time to do something. Or you go to the website first and you check it out, and then you call me. And if they call you up and they haven't looked at the website, this is not a good start to a relationship, right? You tell them to go to the website, check out the photos, and they call you and say, do you have photos online? Did you read the ad? You get this all the time. The first question is the property still available? The second question is, how many bedrooms does it have? Were you on the ad when you just called me? It said 3 bedrooms, right? I mean, are you getting these calls?
And move-in date.
Yeah, it's like, did you guys actually read the ad? It says all this information in there.
It says no pets, and then they call and say, do you accept pets?
But this isn't a pet. This is a family member. He's a dog, right?
So what do you do with pets? Like, how much more do you make them put down? Do you even accept pets?
Yeah, we're going to talk about this another day. It's tenant screening. But yes, I do accept pets. You'd actually eliminate about 85% of the market if you don't accept pets. Yeah. So we accept pets. But it's up to you. You guys set your own policies. But we'll talk about that in tenant screening. I can't teach like everything one night.
When is that class?
Tenant screening? I don't know. Soon. I don't know when the schedule is. I told you I'm going to change it all up. But the thing is, you got a year, right? If you're doing Nomad, you've got time, right? And if you're working with me as a client, I'll sit down with you if you're like before the class or something like that. And we're going to record them and all that other stuff. Good stuff. Okay, 24-hour recorded information line, video, or website. Using the pre-screen callers to get out additional information about the tenant criteria in the property. You'll still get calls asking basic info, but it'll cut down on some. You always get the calls. How many bedrooms is there? It's 3 bedrooms. It says it right in the ad, guys. And there's 3 bedroom photos. So.
How do you get a 24-hour pre-screen?
24-hour recorded information line? You can hire a service to do it. Services like Call 8, what are some of these like telephone answering service things, or like basically glorified answering lines, like what's
You can also do a Google
I
number.
don't know, $10, $20 a month. Yeah, you can get a Google voice number and record a
And
message.
leave a message on it, like a voicemail.
Yeah.
Reading on a Google number.
Exactly, and it just says, hey, thank you for calling about the rental property. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath property on this street in Old Town Fort Collins, and the rent we're asking for is $2,000, and here are some of the features of it. If you're interested, go ahead and leave me a voicemail message, and I'll call you back as soon as I can. We're scheduling showings usually in the evenings or something like that, whatever you want to do for that. You can do a really short version, you can do a really, really long version, depending on what you're trying to do. All right, vary ads and duplicate vary ads and duplicate ads. So vary ads, different text, different table layouts, mostly images, different images. Always save copies of what you use to your swipe file. We covered this. It seems like a repeat. Why don't you just give me the ad to run? I get this question all the time. James, just give me an ad to run. I'll go and run it. Well, part of the problem is Craigslist has algorithms that actually will block if you're running the same ad. So if I gave you all the same ad to run, and you two happen to have ads that were running at the same time, Craigslist is going to look at you and say, duplicate ad, I'm not going to run Curtis's. Because I'm going to actually ghost it. Yeah, and that gets all upset. So basically, you want to go and make your own ads. use the same concepts to kind of do it, but you want to make them different enough.
Were they going off the text or the pictures, or what were they
They're doing a combination of stuff. In fact, we had clients that bought new construction properties in the same neighborhood, and the ads were similar enough, different properties, different photos, but they were similar enough that they were being blocked when they were running them. So you got to be careful about it. So duplicate ads are blocked. You can run several different ads for the same thing in fast-moving categories, and your personality in your marketing, I think, is an important factor. You're not the same as me. I can say something that you can't say, you can say something that I can't say, it just won't sound authentic, okay? Apparently I give off the harsh vibe. I didn't think I gave off the harsh vibe, but maybe I do. So, I can say, I can totally, am I softer now, by the way?
You still talk really fast.
Oh, I totally talk fast. This is a known thing. In fact, I'm from New York originally, so I talk fast to begin with, but I have like very little patience. I'm like a get to the point type of guy. Maybe that's what you're getting. But I'm like a get to the point type of guy, and I will listen to like audiobooks. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I listen to them at 2 times speed because I can barely stand it. And so like when people are talking, it's like you guys are talking in slow motion to me. It's like, come on. Because I'm just so used to hearing things at like 2 times speed, and then when I go and talk, it's like I have a small stuttering problem if you couldn't tell. And so like it comes out when I start talking really, really fast because it's just like, and I just start stumbling over. I don't know why I'm going off on this tangent, but your personality and your marketing matters.
You're trying to change my mind about you.
Am I trying to change my mind? Yeah, I don't know. I didn't think I gave up the harsh vibe. Maybe I did. Yeah. All right, ghosting is fun. My wife thinks I'm snugly. All right, Craigslist flagging and ghosting. So there's 2 different things that happens on Craigslist that are kind of unique to Craigslist. Craigslist is not kind of like supervised, so to speak. It's user policed. So basically the users decide if an ad in the category should not be there. And what they do in order to tell people that it shouldn't be there is they flag them. And they have all sorts of wicked algorithms that they use in order to determine whether or not an ad is flagged to be removed. And so you could post up an ad, and if it looks like you're just running the same ad every day and you have 4 different copies of the ads up there, a certain number of people are going to say this ad's a duplicate, go ahead and flag it, remove it. If you get like 2 or 3 people or whatever their number is that say this ad should be removed, your ad actually comes down. And you'll get an email probably from Craigslist telling you your ad has been flagged for removal. It's no longer available in your account to even see. That's why you keep a copy of it somewhere else. You can repost it. But basically, it's user police. You don't want to do that. That's what flagging is. Any questions on flagging before I cover what ghosting is? Okay, so flagging is that. Ghosting is something completely different. Ghosting is when you post up an ad on Craigslist, you go into your admin account, and it looks like the ad is live. You click on the ad, you can actually see the ad. It looks like everything is totally fine. But when you go to Craigslist 15 or 30 minutes later, because there's a delay before it appears in the search results, kind of like on the page that shows all the different ads, there's a small delay, usually about 30 minutes. But when you go there 30 minutes or 45 minutes later, you cannot find your ad. Everything else looks normal, except your ad never shows up on the search page or in the search results. That's called ghosting. Okay? I don't have any direct input from Craigslist, but if you go read about this online, there are theories that Craigslist is using this to deter spammers from spamming ads on Craigslist. They're making it seem like the ad went live and everything was accepted, but they're just never showing it on the search results page, so the spammers don't get any benefit of running the ad, even though everything seems to be normal on their side. That make sense? So you don't want to do, and ghosting I think is affected partially by where you have your account, your IP address for where you're posting. If you are hiring someone in the Philippines or India as a kind of worker to kind of be a VA, an assistant for you, and post your ads, it's going to be harder for them to get their ads posted and not ghosted on Craigslist because their IP address, unless they're using proxy servers, and we're not going to get into that discussion, but unless they're using proxy servers and they're posting from a local marketplace near you. And I think it matters enough that they will probably give a preference to people posting from a Fort Collins-based IP than even a Denver or Colorado Springs type IP. Make sense? So if you go and you check your ad after it's been up for about 30 minutes and it's not there, it may have been ghosted, and so you may need to post a different ad. Change your ad up and repost it and post it again. Delete the other one so that you're not having 2 up and you're going to get flagged. Remove it and do another one. Make sense? Okay. Talked about this. Be organized to make your posting easy. Save the ad content Dropbox property file. Make your posting faster. Zillow. So we covered Craigslist. Any questions about Craigslist before we move on to Zillow? Remember the first thing I told you to do, you should put a sign in the yard. Second thing is you do Craigslist. Third thing is Zillow. So this is the third most important thing. You go to Zillow/rental manager in order to post your ad on there. Add your property to Zillow's rentals. A couple little notes on here. I would recommend that you show your phone number and email. So it'll ask you for that if you can. Zillow's rent estimates, because they're going to show you on there, they're kind of whatever they call it, Zestimate of rent. I will tell you, they're all over the board. They can be really high, they can be really low. So you should not use those as your rental comps. You should go look at rental comp properties. We'll do another class on rental comps another time. But don't use that number as kind of like, oh, I'll start there. Could be low, could be high. And they have, if you're kind of a geeky engineer type, you can go look at Zillow's data on how accurate they are on rents and how accurate they are on property values. It's kind of scary. The joke I use is that Zillow is actually owned by Comedy Central. The whole website's a joke, okay? Because their numbers are all over the place. Only like, I forget what the exact number, but 40% of the time they're within 10% of value.
And on that too, I just did a Zillow, and you have to put your number in the actual text, otherwise you just get email. And then so it's important in your text, but because they ask for your number, but it won't show up unless you write it in the description.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned put it in there. Put it in the description.
Because otherwise you just get an email and then you don't ever get a hold of half of them.
Yeah, you want to actually increase the response by having a phone number. You'll also, if you put your phone number in there, you'll get a lot of people trying to text you as well. I don't know if you've noticed that. So I personally would rather talk to them on the phone.
And once you go on to Zillow, it puts you on 3 other sites too.
Yeah, we're talking about that syndication somewhere on there. I forget where it is. Oh, syndicate, that's it. So yeah, so continue on. Recommend put your phone number in there. Zillow's rent estimates. Do fair market rent comps instead. Select your lease duration, which includes an option for rent to own. So if you're doing a 6-month lease or a year-long lease, I think you should do years, unless you have a different reason to do that. Or if you're doing a rent to own, there's a separate option on there for that. Enter in any additional lease terms. Add photos. They even say on there that adding photos increases the response by 71%. That's the Zillow stat. So I would totally do photos, maximize them, and you know the better the photos, the better the response rate is, right? Describe your property details, title, description. Use all the stuff we talked about in Craigslist to do that. And then, as Dan was saying, we recommend that you syndicate out to other websites as well on Zillow to maximize exposure. They'll say, do you want us to send this out to these 5 or 10 other websites? You should do that. It's good use. Then save a copy of what you used in your sweat file for next time, and in case something happens with this time. Make sense? All right, let's talk about yard signs. Yard signs. So yard sign is probably one of the most important things you can do, in my opinion. Your yard sign is a flyer box. Add flyers to the flyer box. So if you're doing a little flyer box on the side there, definitely do that. If you're using 24-hour recorded message line, a telephone number, a website, or email on your sign, double check that before putting it out. I am embarrassed to say I have actually put out the wrong phone number, the wrong website on signs before, and I wonder why we're not getting calls. And then I go out there and look at it and realize that that's on there. So double check yours, especially if you're having someone else do it for you. So go ahead and do that, and then call it. There's also been times when I thought I had my 24-hour recorded information line set up, and it turns out I did not. So you definitely want to check that. So place your yard sign in the front yard so that you can read it as you approach the property. So the house is here. Should I have the sign so that you can read it here, or should I have the house so that you can read it here? The house is here. This is the road. Which way should I have it? This way?
They can read out on the road.
So this way? Like pointing toward the road? This way. So that people driving by can read it pretty easily. Yeah. So you should have it so that they can drive by and see it that way. You want them to be able to see it from a distance that there's a house for rent. Make sense? What if you have a house that's on a corner lot? Which way should you put it? Should you put it on the...
You put 2 in there?
Yeah, you put 2 in there. Yes, totally want to put 2. So occasionally a property warrants 2 signs. Corner lots as an example.
So James, I have a question.
Yes.
When I used a sign, I found that I got a lot of calls, but I got a lot of calls from people who couldn't afford the property.
Yes, we're going to talk about that in a second. But that's a great question. Yep. So occasionally property warrants 2 signs. Save a photo of what you use in your swipe file for the property. So if you're going to use a certain sign, take a photo of your sign in case you find the sign disappeared and you're like, what did we put on the sign last time and did that work? You have a photo of it in your file. Okay? Consider leveraging your other properties or putting signs in those yards too. So in the house you're living in, if it's on a busier street than the house that you have that's for rent, maybe you put a sign that says for rent and the address of the property that is available over there. Take advantage of what you have. Okay?
But say that again?
If you've got 2 properties, and one of them's occupied, especially if it's owner occupied, and the other one is actually rented, the other one is for rent, you can put a sign in both yards. In the for rent one, this one, put the address of the other property to show that that one's for rent.
Okay.
Yep. Kind of an advanced strategy. You probably won't need to do that, but it's something you do. Okay. Info on yard signs. Your contact info. So you can have a sign that just says for rent. You can put your phone, email, or website, whatever way you want them to communicate with you. The rental amount on the sign. So in the yard, $1,800 a month. 3-bed, 2-bath, 2-car garage. You can put down a security deposit if you want to. It'll cut down the screening, right? You can put the address of the property, especially if it's a directional sign or a sign in the other yard. And then any other features. Pool. Something like that if you want to have additional information on there. So you can put additional info on the sign itself. And if you have a flyer box, it'll cut down the sign cost too. If you're going to be a professional landlord, are you going to go buy the cheap signs from Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace Hardware, or are you going to cough up the $50 or $100 to get a metal sign that's professional with a flyer box, knowing that you're going to reuse these things? Which one are you going to do?
Professional.
Probably professional, right?
I bought those cheap ones from Walmart or whatever, and they lasted Cheyenne like a week.
Yeah.
I thought someone was sabotaging me. I just put up a real sign, a good one, and then it stays for a year now, but my cheap one was disappearing every week.
There you go. So you can either buy, a $10 sign and have it disappear every week, or you can buy a $50 sign or $100 sign and have it last for a long time. I think you should buy a good sign, personally. And if you're doing it with friends and you want to kind of go halfsies on the sign and do that, that's great. A little trick for you, too. Kind of an advanced trick. I didn't put a slide on this. So if you're going to write custom text on your sign and you're going to buy a generic, kind of like for rent sign that's got a big white box where you can write text in there, one thing you can do is you could take clear tape and you actually put clear tape over the white section, and then you can write in your big magic marker over that. When you're done with the sign, you pull off the tape and you put on tape for the next one. That way you're not using a sign for every property. You kind of use a little trick to reuse it. Make sense? Okay. That's like a cheap thing to do, but works. Any questions on info on yard signs? Newspaper classified ads. Do we even still have newspapers? I got to keep teaching this because, at some markets, I'm sure the newspaper is going to be effective, but around here, don't do it.
The old people.
Yeah. I mean, if you're trying to rent to old people without being, shake that back. Fair housing law says that you cannot discriminate based on age. So, don't do that. But you're more likely to demographically find a slightly skewed older person in newspapers. Not that you should think about that. So don't use these as much since newspaper circulation is way down. If you're using 24-hour recorded information line, phone number, email, or website, double check it before placing your ad. Here's a little tip when we used to do a lot of these. Use email or fax to order classifieds. Don't do it on the phone. People are tempted to call up and say, I want to run an ad, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, $1,500 a month. And you have nothing in writing to show them what you wanted in your ad, and then they transcribe something or transpose something, and it comes out and it's wrong, it has the wrong telephone number, it has the wrong rent, it has the wrong, thing. If you gave them an email or a fax and told them this is what I want you to run, and it came back and it was bad, you can call the company and say, I want you to make good on the ad. You ran it wrong. And if you document it, they'll actually do that. If you don't, it depends on who you get on the phone. Most newspapers are not going to offer you proof on classified ads, so there's just not enough money in it. And then save a photo of your email, fax, and the actual newspaper ad when it runs in your swipe file for this property. Any questions on that? You probably won't do this, guys. Directional signs. You should do these. So most people underdo directional signs. They think to themselves, I've got a sign in the yard, what do directional signs mean? They can't be that effective. They're super effective. Directional signs are like the secret weapon. If you've got a house in the middle of a neighborhood, you could have people driving by the main street to that neighborhood, never driving in the neighborhood to know that there's a perfect rental property for them in there, and that they could cut their commute time by 30 minutes. But if you put a directional sign out at the beginning of the neighborhood and put property for rent, $1,800 a month, 4-bedroom, 2-bath, they can see that now on the kind of main street, and they know that they can go in there and look and get more information. So you should do directional signs to kind of direct people, especially when you're not on a busy road. Yeah?
Where can you put those that they won't get taken down?
These are disposable. They're going to get taken down. That's a great question, though. So directional signs, you don't go buy the nice ones for those. You go buy like 50-pack from like an online service like banditsigns.com or something like that, and you go get them, and they're disposable. It's like paying for advertising in the newspaper. Expect them to just disappear.
So you have to put them on. You're putting them on other people's property, or you're trying to.
A lot of times you're putting them on the corner where the city owns, like on the thing. You're saying for rent, arrow into the neighborhood. So kind of like the, in New Orleans we call it the neutral area, kind of like the neutral ground where, it's not really the street, but it's, the grassy area between the sidewalk and the road. So
Would you put like your address on there?
Yes.
Like in that little space? Like
Yep.
Whatever the address is?
Can you get messed with or in trouble for that, or is it just a nuisance but no one messes with you?
I doubt anybody will mess with you. I mean, if you're putting out signs like the We Buy Houses type signs and stuff like that, people will mess with you, or lose weight, like ask me how type of stuff. Those types of signs, if you do that, you'll definitely get messed with. You'll get calls from sign police, whatever it is, public safety. But if you do, like for my dad, I doubt anyone's gonna get crazy on you. I've never had anyone do it, and we do that for open houses and things of that nature. I mean, it's a common practice, and people listening to the recording, if you've got a problem in your city, don't do that. But in our city, I wouldn't worry about it. Again, check your number if you're doing that, or website or email, whatever you're gonna do, and then save a photo of that in your swipe file so that you know what you use next time. Make sense? It's a common theme here. YouTube checklist. So a lot of people are doing YouTube video tours of their properties now. I think that's super helpful. Photos only tell you so much about how a property flows. And so going in there and doing your camera and saying, okay, here's the kitchen, and making them sick to their stomach by turning really fast and say, okay, here's the dining room, and here's the bedroom, and so on. That actually is helpful for a lot of people. And people that are really serious about the property, they're going to go look at those. And so doing videos is going to be a good help for you. You can create a video tour of that, and you can be talking to them about your qualification process as you give them a tour of the house. Here's the bedroom. We normally require 3 times the income, and you have to basically do this, and we don't take felons, and we allow pets, but here's kind of the pet policy, and that sort of thing. You can talk to them about it as you give them a tour of the property. Be helpful.
So how do you get that to pop up? Because most people aren't going to go onto YouTube to look, but if you
Correct.
get what's a way to get someone to pop into that?
So you put on your flyer, video tour of property at website address, or you can give them the URL for YouTube, and you can do it on yard signs, directional signs. You could do it in your Craigslist ad.
Can you get it to pop up if they just look for rent? Can you get those to pop up?
I've never tried to do SEO for a particular rental. The period of time is just too short. We're just not messing with it. You could, but I'm not. Evergreen might. I mean, Evergreen might be trying to get their website to come up for Fort Collins rentals, and that way when people are looking for Fort Collins rentals, they've got a whole bunch of people that are coming to their website because they're a property management company. But for you and me to do that, I don't think so. I mean, you've got property management companies that are trying to come up with those terms, so I wouldn't bother. And then put a copy of your video in your swipe file so that you have it for next time. Okay? Any questions on YouTube? For rent flyers. So create flyer for the rent that you'll use. That makes sense. Search online for real estate agent templates for properties. This is kind of an example of a real estate agent one I found online somewhere. Lender templates. Your lender sometimes will have templates for you to use. So call up your lender if you want one, or call up your real estate agent if you want one. Who are you using to qualify your tenant buyers if you're doing that? So if you're doing rent to own and you're having your lender do that, you may want to have some information on there about loans. And so your lender will be happy to help you with a flyer, because they do that for real estate agents. Most of them do, not every single one. But a lot of them will help you make a flyer. Title companies also offer flyer services. You can go on Fiverr if you want to pay $5, $10, have someone do a flyer for you. It's a service company. And then Zillow, sometimes they'll give you the flyer page or something like that that you can use from Postlets. And again, if you're using any of those 24-hour recorded message lines, phones, websites, or emails in your flyers, double check it before printing and delivering. Continuing on with flyers. So, in my opinion, you should print out probably 70 to 100 flyers. Could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less, depending on what you're willing to do. I think you should deliver them to the nearest neighbors. The idea is that birds of the feather flock together. The people that are living around your rental property are going to know people that would be a good tenant for that particular property. All the engineers tend to live in the same neighborhoods. Okay? Yep, they totally do. So, I mean, part of it's a function of income, part of it's a function of they like being around you. So, you don't like being around other engineers?
No.
You only like one engineer.
Just wait till you get a herd of them together and you don't know what they're talking about.
This is it, right? That's why, because they go and they talk to neighbors that aren't engineers, and the engineers, they're like, stay away from me. But if they're like around other engineer people, they're like, hey, you were at work, we're doing this thing, releasing this thing. They're like, oh yeah, this is all good stuff. So they flock together, and they'll know about people that are looking to rent. They'll hear it at the water cooler, they'll hear it over email and things like that. So the idea is to go around to the nearest properties and hit those.
What do you mean, like put them in the door?
Yep, you do door-to-door flyers. Yep. If you don't want to do that, we're going to talk about postcards next. So printing 100 color flyers might cost you about $40 to $50 for single-sided. Black and white might cost you about $4 to $5. Are you going to do color? I think a lot of people would. I could think of examples where you don't need color, especially if you're not emphasizing the photos and you're telling them to get a video tour online or go see photos of the property online. Especially if you have a slightly higher end property, I think that's totally fine. Okay? But you can do color if you want to. It has a bigger impact. I personally would probably go cheaper and do black and white. Double check contact info, phones and websites again just before printing. How do I know this? Ask me. If you're trying to maximize price, you're printing more than one batch. So if you start off at $18.95, because that's your stretch number, plan on printing another batch if you're not getting $18.95 a week later and you're going to drop it down to $18.50. And then plan on printing another batch if you're going down to $17.95. Does that make sense? So you might have to do more than one batch. Take a copy of the flyer and paste it on the inside window of the house. So it's hard to do if it's occupied, but if it's vacant, it's really easy to do. You just go and you paste it on the inside because even if you have a flyer box, the flyers disappear and there's none left, and people still want to know the info. A lot of them will go up to the door and look. And so having it right there and having the flyer do that. If it's two-sided, do 2 copies, one for the front, flip it around, tape the other one to the door as well. Make sense? If the property is vacant, a lot of times, I know you guys don't want to hear this, but when I'm personally doing my own rental properties, not clients or anything like that, but my own personal rental properties, I sometimes will let tenants show themselves the property when I'm not there. And so I put flyers inside the property on the counter, 10 sheets, 20 sheets, and then we hide another 20 copies in the drawer in case those disappear. I could tell them, they'll say, there's no flyer here. I say, go in the drawer and put out the next stack. And then I know to go replace them. Okay, so you can kind of do little tricks to keep yourself going. If your yard sign is a flyer box, add flyers to the flyer box. Talked about that. Keep your flyer box, keep your flyer in the swipe file, and you can reuse the flyer as a Craigslist ad or post to Facebook. So you take the image of your flyer, create a PDF or a JPEG or a GIF or whatever you're going to do, and actually use that as an image on Craigslist or on Facebook. Just post it as an image. Any questions on for rent flyers? Postcards to neighbors. So if you feel self-conscious about going door to door and do this, you can actually have postcards go out to the 50 neighbors around there. Go down to a title company, ask them for the addresses of the 50 closest houses, and you can then mail out one that says, basically it's a classified ad, a little bit bigger than classified ad about the property. And could be done instead of flyers. Use this with 24-hour recorded information line, telephone, email, or website for more information, and check your number before you do that. Save a copy of what you use in your swipe file for the property, and I recommend both saving image of whatever you sent out plus the text so you don't have to retype it. Makes it a little easier later. Any questions on that? Facebook. So I'll tell you about Facebook. I have never done this. So Facebook posts in local area related groups. Apparently there's a for rent section around here for Facebook. You can go on there and actually post an ad in the for rent section. I was not aware of that, but someone told me that recently. Facebook ads to demographically ideal tenant buyers. You could run ads and say, I want people within a mile of this address, and try to find someone from there, and you can run an ad to your website or you have your telephone number and geographically around property. It's essentially a classified ad, and again, check your telephone numbers and emails and websites before you put it up there. And then save a copy of text and image in your swipe file. Any questions on Facebook? I've not ever done this. I just never got down this far in my list that it was important. And then finally, because I think this is one of the last slides, the MLS for rent checklist. So if you have the ability to put your property into the MLS in the for rent section in our local market, it basically is a ghost town. You guys don't ever put anything on the MLS for rent, right? You didn't even know it exists. There is a rent section in our MLS, but no one uses it. It's literally goes down. But in some other areas of the country, there's a really vibrant broker-aided rental market where real estate brokers go and they show people rental properties and they get paid a half month's rent or a full month's rent or something like that for placing a tenant. And that's what the industry normal is for their local markets. And in those markets, there's a really good, vibrant community for posting stuff in the MLS. Around here, nothing going on. So, go ahead and do that, but realize you're probably paying a fee in order to list it in there unless you happen to be a real estate agent yourself. Make sense? And then buyer's list, apparently that was not the last slide. Some nomads will be doing lease options, and so they'll be doing this more as a business, and they'll be doing properties more frequently. Those people should have an email buyer's list where they can do an email blast or voice broadcast blast where that says, I've got a property for rent, if you're interested, give me a call. And then a text blast where you text out to 100 people and say, I've got a property 3-2, 2-car garage, and old 10-4 columns, you want that. And that's to kind of syndicate out to your buyer's list. Questions? I might have answers. You have any questions?
What, well, I guess, I don't know, does it have to be related to this exactly?
Nah, not exactly, but I
Okay,
prefer
so
it.
like the type of house that you recommend for purchasing for the
Yep.
nomad?
So it would be ideally a property that would make a good rental. It's kind of the first criteria. That ranges quite a bit for people. So some people say, I'm used to renting properties that are $350,000, and that's kind of my crowd, and that's what I want to live in, and you can do that. The numbers tend to be a little bit worse if you're slightly above median. The sweet spot, typically, is the second quartile. So if you think about all the prices of properties, from the cheapest stuff you can find on the bottom to the most expensive stuff on top, the median is the middlemost number. That's the 50 percentile. Below 50th percentile, but above the 25th percentile, so not the cheapest stuff, not the really low-end crappy properties, but sort of like the 25th percentile to the 50th percentile, that's the second quartile. That tends to be the sweet spot where you get a good quality tenants, good quality ratio of rent to price. The property prices are not super, super low where you get crushed by CapEx, but it's sort of that second quartile sweet spot. And they talk about that a lot in the, not a lot, but I think it's like, image figure 34 or something like that in the Millionaire Real Estate Investor book, the Blue Book by Gary Keller. They talk about that as being the sweet spot for there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's sort of the idea. Yeah. Does that help?
Can you give us your philosophy on pets and how you handle that?
My philosophy on pets?
Yeah.
I allow pets.
And what do you charge and what do you do for deposit?
It varies. I try to maximize the amount of security deposit because it's always too low. So no matter how much I charge, if there really is pet damage, it's always way too low. I should charge more every single time.
What do you charge?
It varies. It varies on the property and rent and stuff like that, but I don't think it's unusual to charge a non-refundable $500 for a pet and then extra pet rent each month for pets. What does Evergreen do?
We do 200 for a cat, 300 for a dog.
Yeah.
So I think we're still.
Per month or deposit?
A deposit.
And how
then
much
it
more
just-
per month?
It just depends.
50 to 100?
For pet rent,
Yeah.
what are our average, like 75?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It varies. It varies all over the place. I will tell you, I like cats less than dogs.
Because of the spraying?
Yeah, and they just they're messier for a lot of people.
Do you discriminate about breed of dog?
Your insurance may dictate that actually. So your insurance may say you cannot have the pit bull breed or whatever it is, and so call your insurance company to find out.
Okay.
But I would not personally discriminate based on breed.
Okay.
But
So you allow cats and dogs?
I have in the past. Yeah, it varies a little bit.
Is there certain properties that are nicer where you're just like, I'm not going to put a pet in here because I don't want it?
You could, but I mean, you're definitely eliminating a much larger percentage of the population. I heard the stats on this, like 85% of people have pets or something ridiculous. So if you actually eliminate pets,
So yeah,
you're really cutting down your pool.
And is the pet deposit per pet?
Yes.
and you don't want like $5 or $6 or something.
No, of course not, right? Yeah. Yeah, you
So
took that.
what, do you put more weight on their credit score or what their past tenants said about them? So let's say they had bad credits, but their previous tenants, the last two, say they kept the house clean and they paid on time.
Yep.
That to me is more important than if they had bad credit. I mean, I'll take that.
We'll talk about this a lot in tenant screening, because there's a sheet we use that says here's the criteria, here's the scoring for each area, and so you have to score them, you have to score them fairly. And so you could say, hey, listen, past landlord, recommendation is 50% of the kind of screening process, and then these other things are each 8% each, or whatever kind of your numbers that you are, but you need to be consistent for everybody. And so I'll go over what mine are during tenant screening, but basically you need to set up a policy for that. Yeah, we'll cover that like in detail with tenant screening.
I have another question.
Yeah.
When you're looking to purchase your next home that you're gonna live in, are there certain things that you splurge on? Like say you can build your next house,
Yeah.
are there certain things you spend more money on? Like I've heard, some people that have done a lot of rentals say, I put as much hard surface in there as I can. I put as least amount of carpet and, do you have anything like that that you look for in the next house that you say, I'm not gonna budge on? Whatever.
Yeah, it's super flexible based on the client. And people have different philosophies on this. Some people believe that they should be buying the absolute lowest price quality thing that they can find, and some people believe that they are going to be living in it for a year and they want some nice things and they're willing to spend that money. There are certain things you get money for having, and certain things you don't get money for having, and certain things you would end up saving on by investing a little bit more up front and doing that. And so you kind of have to weigh those on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
But yeah, as much of this LVT, luxury vinyl tile on the floor, I think that's a better idea than vinyl, and in a lot of cases we can put this in places where and not have carpet. I think that's a better thing. This has a longer life cycle. You pay a little bit more for it. I think carpet's about around here $3 a square foot for the cheap stuff, and LVT I think is like $4 and change installed kind of for things. So you're paying a premium to get it, but if you calculate out what your expected lifespan is on those, you can do some really simple math in order to see which one you prefer.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. All right, so I'm going to finish up with a couple slides that probably aren't really germane. So people that are not here, not able to answer questions live, I recommend that you contact the local real estate agent or lender in your local marketplace because they have local market knowledge and they can tell you about what's going on there. And for some reason you cannot, and this is absolutely like worst case scenario, you cannot get a hold of them. You can actually buy consulting from me. I would prefer you did not. I would prefer you actually go and contact the real estate agent, lender, or insurance agent, or wherever it is in your local market and get access to their information. You can also go on the website, Learn to Be Rich. If you read an article and you have a question about that article, go ahead and post a question on there. But I really would prefer you did not hire me to do consulting. It's not something I want to do, but I will make it available if it's like you cannot find someone else to do stuff. So you're welcome to do that on the website there. And then finally, if you are a real estate agent or broker or lender and you're in a different area and you want to become a sponsor and run your own group like this, we give you the slides and everything else so you can run your own class and answer questions and help people buy and sell properties there. You can go on the website, learntoberich.com/sponsor, and there's information about the numbers behind our Real Estate Investor Club from a kind of running the club perspective, and also a video and some tools and stuff like that. So you can go to learntoberich.com to sponsor for that. And that is it for tonight. Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it. Hope you guys learned some stuff. And if you have questions afterward, we're definitely I'll hang out and answer any questions you have off recording as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you guys learn anything now that we're not recording?
So I think we all want a tenant screening class.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a feeling that's coming up in Craig too.
Fun drive. Hey, where's a better place to get those signs?